Welcome, everybody, to the Success Elevated podcast. This is episode 6. I'm your host, Hayden Lee, and I'm excited to have you all here. I'm here with a well-known name in the restoration industry, despite what he might try and say. His name's Eric Sprague, former restoration company owner and now owner of Morning Tech Meeting and Super Tech University. Thanks for coming on the show, Eric.
No, Hayden, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you today.
I don't know if I'm a well-known entity.
Well, according to Derek and Katie,
okay.
who are my bosses, and so I just kind of do what I'm told. You know,
all right.
They say
I'll take it.
You're well known. Well, your story is cool for a lot of different reasons, but I think it's relatable across all industries, both inside and out of the cleaning and restoration. For a lot of different reasons, but ultimately, I think your main focus and what you transitioned away from in the blue collar world to the white collar world, if you will, I think is super cool and super relatable. And I wanted to have you on to talk about a lot of different things, but at first I would like to talk a little bit about what initially attracted you to the cleaning and restoration industry and how that all got started and what made you interested in starting a restoration company.
Sure. Well, nobody wakes up one day and says they're going to be a restoration guy. I think we all fall into it somehow.
Yeah, that's kind of a loaded question there.
Yeah. But, well, let me back up a little bit. So,
okay, go ahead.
I grew up in Maine, pretty blue collar town. Always had, kind of clean swimming pools, mason's assistant, electrician's assistant, dig ditches, clean up construction sites. So I always had a blue collar job growing up. And I always wanted to have a white collar job, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
went to college. I'm like, I got to go the other way. If I'm going to make any money, I need to, be a white collar worker and blah, blah, blah. So went to college, got a job at Aetna, life insurance in their corporate office. And all of a sudden I'm in a suit and a tie and a cubicle. And we even had what they called the Aetna haircut. Like you could go downstairs and there was a hair salon and they had like one haircut, And I remember they used to call people that worked at the building. I don't know exactly how many. The building held like 10,000 people. I mean, you never have been more of a number in your life.
Yeah. That's
and
crazy.
They used to call us Etnoids. Like,
oh my God.
And anybody that knows me knows like that is not me. That is just not me. So I left that job after 18 months roughly, and I took a job digging ditches, and I was so much happier. I grew my hair out way long, grew a beard, and I was just like, okay, I tried that. That's not for me. So I need to learn now how to be successful in a more trade-oriented field. And then that started on a 30-year journey, really. So, excuse me. I've had a lot of years of running technicians. I worked for a golf simulator manufacturer as their VP of operations. It was still pretty blue collar on my side, on the ops side, running guys, building golf simulators all over the world. And then, wanted to go out and do my own thing. Like I just had the entrepreneurial bug.
Yeah.
And talked to my college roommate into having the bug with me. Well, actually, it's not 100% true. I started about 6 months before he did. And then I was getting run ragged being a solo operator, needed help. I wanted to grow. So brought Larry, my college roommate, into it. And then, I started cleaning carpets because my boss at the golf simulator company, he had passed away, but he was very much a mentor to me, like almost like a second father in a lot of ways. And I remember saying to him once, hey, when this is over and you retire, I think I'm going to want to go do my own thing. What should I do? And he's just like, fine. Sorry, Hayden, I'm nursing a cough. So.
No, you're good. You're good.
He was just like, you got to find something where a lot of your competition is not very sophisticated. And, like look for a niche where you could do good service that maybe other people aren't quite doing, and then attack that head on. And I had a couple bad carpet cleanings at my house with really poor service. So we started doing that. And then how we got into restoration was Larry and I, it's the funniest thing, Hayden. So I had a carpet cleaning van with our name on it that said carpet cleaning. And then we had another van that said duct cleaning because we did air duct cleaning as well. And the only two people in the company were Larry and I at the time. And he had a job cancel on him last minute, and so did I. We were both really angry. And we're like, well, we might as well meet up on a street corner and just eat our lunch in a parking lot, right? And kind of hang out. Sorry, I think I'm going to be doing this for an hour.
No, you're good.
And so we were sitting there, and all of a sudden this white truck rolls up, and the guy like rolls down the window like zzz, and he says, hey, you guys do carpet cleaning and air duct cleaning? We're like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, I'm the lead project manager of a very large restoration franchise. And he's like, give me a call tomorrow. I need new subs. So we're like, okay. And literally 2 days later, what they now call the Freeway Complex fire, which we called the Yorba Linda fires, happened. And we were cleaning on restoration job sites 6 days a week for the next 6 to 8 months.
Wow.
And we got a real education in what restoration was by doing that. And in that time, we were so busy, we started scaling up employees. We started buying truck mounts because we just had that much work. But we realized, like, hey, this work's going to end. So we better have,
we better have a long-term game plan.
Eventually the fire's over,
Yeah.
And we just saw like obviously we were never going to compete with them. They were huge, but we're like, hey, we can do this and do it maybe a little bit differently than them on a more local level, more boutique. And we just started taking classes and started doing restoration jobs. And then within probably 2 years, we completely flipped. Like 90% of our revenue was restoration and 10% was cleaning.
It's interesting, one of the first guest on our podcast was a guy named Kenyon Martin, who owns a restoration company here in Blackfoot, Idaho. And his initial start into cleaning and into the restoration industry was carpet cleaning as well. And it seems like that happens for a lot of guys out there, a lot of, guys and gals that's starting these restoration companies. Why do you think that is? Is it just the natural progression from, like you said, you get invited on jobs as by restoration companies kind of a thing?
I think, that, or you're getting called out to, they have a water loss and they think, oh, I'll call the carpet cleaner to suck up the water. And you get on site and then, you went and did that for $100 and then you realize there's somebody following you that's going to do 10,000
because they're going to clean up all the drywall and they're going to all take care of all the other stuff going on.
Yeah. So you start, a certain percentage of us who go, yeah, I can do that. I can figure that out. I think also carpet cleaners make very good restorers because they start, you can enter restoration 2 ways. You're a construction company that moves into restoration, or you're like a carpet cleaner who moves into restoration. Those are the 2 common ones.
Yeah.
And I think the contractors are able to scale a lot faster. They've got big organizations and they can really scale, but I think the carpet cleaners really excel at service because that's really what you're selling. And they might not scale as fast, but I think they really offer that boutique feel more so. Probably not always, but that's what I see.
No, I think you 100% hit it on the head. I cleaned carpets for just one summer, and that was, ultimately, like we were selling a product in that, we wanted their carpets to be cleaned and, everything was done effectively, but ultimately, like, it was a customer service job. Like, it was 3 months of helping customers and trying to solve their problem. And, if they had an issue with how things were done, trying to, help mitigate that issue. It really was like, it was a service. Like it was customer service more than anything else. And I think, like you said, you mentioned construction guys, so much of that, if you live in any northern state, is tied to the weather. and tied to, having the weather to be able to go out and build a house. It's got to be nice enough weather to do that. And so I think restoration offers like a more year-round income if you can do it right. And
sure.
and it works a lot better that way. You mentioned reaching out to Larry. He's been your business partner now for, you mentioned to me before we started recording, nearly 40 years. You've known him. I guess not a business partner, but you've known him for that long.
Larry's my college roommate. And
Gotcha.
We met when he was 18. I was 19. I'm a year older than Larry. And we actually met in the college gym. We were both a couple meatheads who really like to lift weights, and we're still meatheads. We're not really lifting much anymore,
but still meatheads. Gotcha. Okay. You still have that mentality.
Much, yeah. And and then we started rooming together and spending a lot of time together. And I always knew that Larry, number one, was loyal, and number two is a very, very hard worker. And I don't know, like, yes, of course you want to be smart and intelligent and all that. And I think Larry and I are smart enough, but our currency is always been hard work. We'll just outwork you. Like, yeah, there's smarter people around. You won't outwork Larry and I.
That's really cool.
And that's what's made him a good business partner.
That's really cool. I feel like that personally, that's great advice for anybody, whether it's in restoration or not. Like, if you want to start a business and need somebody to help you, like, find someone that's loyal and find someone that works as hard as you do. Ultimately that's how you're going to be successful.
Well, and look, I also understood there were some other things at play. Like, Larry is very social. He's very likable. So I knew that Larry would be a good marketer because he'll get out in the community and kiss babies and hug people and shake hands and get to be known. And I knew he'd be very good at customer service because he was always waiting tables and bartending when we were young, right? All customer service stuff. I'm more of an operations guy. I like to be behind the scenes. I like to train my own techs, so I knew we had opposing skills. And what you're looking for in a business partner is not a duplicate of yourself. You're looking for the opposite of yourself.
Yeah.
So we had that going for us too.
That's totally. You got to find someone that can make up for where you lack 100%. I think that works for her. Like, maybe finding a spouse or friends. I feel like my friends, those around me, are people that have skill sets outside of what, mine is. And I think that makes me a better person, a more well-rounded individual. And that's totally kind of the best part of that. But, so you talked about scaling and growing into this restoration, and within a year or two, you had it flipped to where you were doing 90% restoration and only 10% cleaning. And you ended up doing that for how long? Was it 12 years? You said 10 to 12 years, something like that.
Yeah, it was 12 years.
It's
probably 11 and change.
11 and change.
Yeah. So, but going back to it, when we were cleaning carpet, we were grossing like 200,000. Right. 9 months later, we were doing over $1 million.
Wow.
And we did not do rebuild. We only did dry outs and mold remediation. So that's a lot of work.
That's a ton of work. That's a lot of jobs for people that are in the restoration industry. You got to be doing a lot of work to do that.
Yeah. And, look, that was a lot of Larry. Larry was a member of like 5 chambers of commerce, never missed a meeting. He'd go to every ribbon cutting, every BNI meeting, never missed an email to send out. I mean, a lot of this was Larry just being a pit bull when it came to the marketing. I know you guys do digital marketing, and, if we still had that business, that's one of the things that we would have wanted to be investing in. But at the time, we didn't know anything about that. It wasn't maybe quite as big a deal. So we just had to do referral marketing and relationship marketing.
Yeah. Well, Larry, sorry to cut you off, but I think, like you said, Larry was a pit bull with it. Like, you have to be with those relationships. You have to be like always trying to foster new relationships, but also keep the current ones working well. Like, if you want to be able to really capitalize on it, you have to be doing it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I was just at a trade show last weekend, and last week, And, look, my job at a trade show is to walk around and find people that we can work with together, like find that person that we can do a business relationship with. Larry's job is to work that booth, right? And I'm like the worst booth worker ever, and I'm pretty introverted and, I'm just not comfortable with like just go. Larry literally stands in the aisle in a fireman's outfit and just talks to every single person that walks by.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to have. If you want to really grow, that's what you got to have.
100%.
You got to the end of that, that 11, 12 years and figured it was, eventually, without fast forwarding too much, you guys decided to sell. What was the turning point that you felt that when did you and Larry know it was time for you to sell?
Well, there were some steps along the way.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound crazy to people, but I think Larry and I in the early years worked ourselves so to death that we never recovered from it. I mean, we were pushing like 90, 100-hour weeks every week, all year for multiple years. And when people go, 100 hours, you weren't working 100 hours. Yeah, we were. We really were. I slept in the warehouse. I mean, I had a family and a home. I didn't even go there. I slept in the warehouse because there's only going to be a couple hours sleep. So, so I think that if we're honest, that was part of it. Right. I don't think most people probably did that. And I don't suggest that to anyone. Like if I could do something over, it would not be doing that.
Right.
That was part of it. Early on, Larry and I were horrible bosses and leaders. We didn't have those skills. And we had a lot of turnover, a lot of problems, a lot of unhappy employees because we were just like, go, go, go. We were trying to run everybody like the pace we're running. If you don't have a good culture, you're not going to pull that off. Right. So I went and got John Maxwell leadership certified. We started doing DISC and we started really getting into training our team. And we got to the point where I even pretty much stepped out of the day-to-day and put that on my managers. And I went like training full time. I was training everybody. That was our secret sauce to growth, was the training. And not only technical training, but soft skills training, which obviously we'll talk about more. And I think I was already starting to do like mastermind groups at night for, realtors. And like what we realized was how I could market was a lot of our referral sources needed help in these areas because they were small businesses too. So I started doing classes and masterminds and coaching them one-on-one. And I was just into it, Hayden. I just was like, this is for me. This is what I meant to do. Now, there is a little backtrack to that. I had originally wanted to be a teacher. So I was working on, before I went to Aetna, I was working on a PhD program in history at Boston College. And I fully thought I was going to be a professor. And then I realized it might not be till I'm 40 till I even get an opportunity to be a professor. And I'm way too impatient for this. But so I think once I started kind of teaching again, that kind of drove me to want to do it like all the time.
Yeah. That's really, really cool. Well, and it, we'd kind of fast forwarded to when you were to the point to sell, but like you said, there were some steps along the way that had to happen. And for you guys to grow, you had to be willing to teach those around you and help them be willing to grow. Like if your team's not as invested and, to your point, your employees are never probably going to be as invested as you are in your company, but you can do some things and train them and help them along the way to maybe get them a little bit more invested and not maybe it's not necessarily the company's success, but their own success. And that will then spill over into their work, into their daily lives. And
well, look at it this way. I mean, most studies say, the numbers vary a little bit. Most studies say 70% of all employees are disengaged. 20% are actively engaged, and 10% are actively disengaged. Right. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I look at that, and I do this when I speak it in public, a typical size for a lot of small cleaning and restoration businesses is to have 10 people. And I'm like, look, I'm going to look at it a different way. What if 7 of my 10 people don't give a crap?
Yep.
2 of my people really care and are trying their hardest. And one person's trying to ruin my life and take as many of the other 7 who don't care with them. Right. So, and look, I lived that. I had that.
Yeah.
Right. Because I was a poor leader at the time. I had to learn how to be a real servant leader. So, winning, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 people working for you, winning is how many people of the 7 that are disengaged, the 70%, how many of those can I get engaged? Can I get, now it's only 40% are disengaged and I have a lot more actively engaged, right? It's a numbers game. So like if I can have, instead of 7, 2, 1, it looks like, whatever, 4, 4 and 2.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill everybody.
Yep.
Because I'm going to have just that many more people that go and ring doorbells, do a better job. And I'm going to smoke my competition. So that's what I recognized. So then I just went all in on, I'm going to try to get as many of my 10, we had 30. I'm going to get as many of my 30 people engaged as possible by any means necessary. Because if I can do that, I win.
100%. Well, and it sounds like we're kind of leading into this part, but you kind of coined the term, and I don't know if Larry coined it for you or you coined it originally, but you became the tech whisperer. And I think that's a huge part of your success. You became this whisperer. And, for those that aren't, necessarily in the restoration industry, techs are your main boots on the ground guys. They're the guys going in and cleaning the carpets, tearing out drywall, rebuilding, if that's what you do. They're your boots on the ground guys. And Eric became, you became the tech whisperer for Shamrock, for your cleaning and restoration company. And yeah, like you said, you were able to help take some of that 70% and maybe move a few of those people back into being, actively engaged in helping you guys be better.
Any service business, when we talk about technicians, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, contracting, whatever.
Any of that.
When you look at the problems that business is having, I can almost guarantee you the majority of the problems are coming from the field, where customers are upset about this, that, or the other. I recognize that in my own business. It's like, I'm not having problems with the people in the office. I'm there with them,
Yeah.
and just, that's not where the problem lies. The problem was the customers calling in going, your guy left and then he never came back, or, whatever. Right. So I'm like, okay, the majority of my problems are from the field. Okay. Got to work on that. But then I started digging deeper. So the office team and myself, we started digging through our callbacks, or our, reservices, whatever you want to call them. And we started identifying, like, what was the problem on each time we got a call saying you need to come back. I'm an unhappy client. Almost never was it a technical issue. My team loved doing technical work. Where they would drop the ball is all the soft skills necessary to make the customer have that 5-star service experience. So I'm like, well, there's my answer. I need to work on the skills that they don't have. And I think we certainly weren't alone. Look, who's coming to my door to be a technician, right? Number one, they weren't techs when they showed up at my place. We trained them to be techs. It's usually a young male, somewhere between the age of 18 and 22, didn't like high school, probably didn't go to college, or if they did, they dropped out quickly. A lot of times, maybe not from the greatest family or neighborhood. So I have this raw diamond, that they want to work and they're good kids. And I say kids because I was old enough to be their parent, So I'm like, all right, I've got this raw diamond. Now it's up to me to polish this and teach them manners, how to live their life outside of work. Don't stay up till 4 a.m. playing World of Warcraft and roll into my place at 7. You're going to be a mess all day. Don't drink a 12-pack of beer on a Thursday night when you got to work on Friday. Eat breakfast, bring water, take a bath. I mean, this sounds crazy. Hayden, these are the issues that home service owners have, right? And people go, oh, well, where were their parents and where was the school and why don't they already know these things? I don't know, but they don't.
They don't.
So it's incumbent upon, guess what? I'm the parent now. Right.
Yep.
And I mean, it would be so great to say, well, I can just go out and get as many technicians as I want that I don't have to do this with. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I don't know where they reside, but I'd love to know. So, look, Peter Drucker, management guru, said this all the time, culture eats efficiency for lunch, or whatever that saying was. It's the same thing here, right? I can be really good at trying to create efficiencies and try to max out my profits. But if I can't have these guys liking what they do, feeling comfortable dealing with that high-end client, I'm going to fail.
100%. You touched on some really cool things there that, I think gets lost in the hiring space. And again, across any industry. I mean, we're talking specifically about home service, but I think it applies to anybody that people are looking for these perfect hiring candidates. And sometimes you can't always get the perfect candidate, but what you can do is change how you are training them and help them to be the best person possible. And, you had to turn into their parent, whatever you want to call it. You had to turn into their teacher, their parent, their mentor, whatever you want to call it. But you had to help all of the above. You had to be willing to help these people do something as basic as, get a good night's rest, come into work excited. And that, maybe that was the baseline. That was the foundation to then be able to okay, let's learn how to, look somebody in the eye and shake their hand and have a conversation with somebody. And, so those soft skills, like you mentioned, was there a particular soft skill that you felt was the most crucial for you and your team to learn? Or was there, what was that skill, you think?
DISC personality profiling. DISC. I know I heard your episode with Katie the other day.
Yeah.
And Larry and I got in the DISC space pretty early. Look, I want to backtrack on that and it will make sense, right?
Okay,
so
go ahead.
Before we got DISC training, so we could become more self-aware, that's what DISC is best for. Larry and I are, look, I'm 55 years old. I'm Generation X and I'm like 1 year off being a boomer, right? So, and Larry's a year younger than me. And I mean, this is, this is 10, 15 years ago. We ran our team like we were run as young people, right? I mean, it was get hazed, get yelled at, told you're an idiot, get the pipe wrench thrown at your head. And if you duck enough times, you get to stay. Right? I say that all the time, right? And that's how we came up, right? So when we started our service business, we're just like, that's how you run, guys. That's how we were doing it. And, it was like you could have put a turnstile at our door. People would just come in, we'd abuse them, they'd leave, and look, that happens still today, every day at companies all over the country. And we were just like, okay, we can't keep anybody in the building. We weren't just abject cruelty to them, but we were tough.
Yeah.
And we came from a society at that time where you got hazed to be stronger, right? That was the idea. And then we started doing some research. We're like, wait a minute, everybody in the building other than the two of us is a millennial. This doesn't fly with them. They just don't buy into it, right? They're just like, oh, this sucks. I'm going to go get another job somewhere. So we were dealing with a lot of what they're talking about with the Great Resignation a decade ago. Yeah. And that's when we started learning DISC, and I went to Maxwell. And you know what? My team of 30 millennials, I put them up against any generation, anywhere. Like once we realized we need to spend time, energy with them. We need to train them. We need to give them purpose. We need to talk about why we do what we do. And once we built that culture, they run through a wall for us. They'd stay late. They'd come early. So this whole thing, like everybody acts like people that were my age were like amazing employees back in the day. Look, when I was growing up, there were all kinds of morons who were horrible employees, didn't show up and came in drunk. And, I mean, this is not new.
Yep.
It's not a new thing. Like everybody acts like it's brand new. I don't believe that personally. So, that's a lot of what we realized. We had to completely make a culture and a training system surrounded by the values of the people who are going to apply.
That's awesome. Building that culture and like you'd mentioned, we talked about this when Katie was here. Building a team and building a winning team starts so much with your culture, and it starts so much with those DISC profiles. There's a million personality tests out there. And again, I talked about this with Katie. There's a million personality tests out there, but I love being a part of an organization that practices what they preach, and we use our DISC personalities and talk about them daily. And it helps us.
So do we.
It helps us know how to communicate with others. It helps us. I'm not giving out DISC personality tests to all of my clients, but it helps me know, okay, I think, so-and-so is this. So this is how I need to communicate with him or her. This is how I should probably talk to them. And this is how they're going to be best received. And it's hugely important. And it's one of those soft skills that not everybody, it's not something that I was good at initially, but I feel like I'm getting better at it. And it's because we talk about it all the time.
But you see, that's the thing. You're not going to be good at it right away. Just like any other skill, it needs constant work and reminder. I mean, by the time we got into it, a year or 2 years down the road, all you would hear in the office is people speaking in DISC all day. And we had it up on the wall. Everybody knew what everybody else's DISC profile was. I'll give you an example, Hayden. So I had 2 guys on a truck. They were on a truck together every single day. And, by this point, I was not heavily involved in the day-to-day operations. So one of my managers came in one day. I was sitting at my desk, doing paperwork or whatever. And he said, hey, the 2 guys, these 2 guys here in the back parking lot, and they're about to start throwing punches at each other. And I'm like, okay, that wasn't a common thing at our company, So I said, well, bring them in. And I'm thinking, here we go, World War III, And they sit down. They're both, I don't know, 25 years old, 24, 25, and they're both kind of fiery guys in a way, And I'm like, so what's going on? And I'm waiting for, he's a jerk and I hate this guy, whatever. And they both kind of take a deep breath. And then one goes, all right, well, here's the deal. I'm a high D and I want to get things done. And he's a high I, and all he wants to do is talk to the clients, and he wants it to be fun and, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And so all of a sudden for like 10 minutes they're going, and then the other guy's going, yeah, I spend too much time talking to the clients and I'm not organized like I should be because of my eye. And like, they're doing this DISC thing between the 2 of them. They did it for like, seriously, 8-10 minutes. And then I just went, so we good? And they were like, yeah. And then they were on the van together for like 2 more years. They just had to get it off their chest. And you know what? The most amazing thing, and I doubled down on DISC after this, because they never mentioned each other's name. So they had a fight, quote, air quotes, for 10 minutes in front of me, but neither guy ever mentioned the other person's name. They only talked about their DISC personality traits. So it took the personal out. It wasn't, Joe versus Tim. It was, I'm a high D, he's a high I. How can we do this?
100%.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Again, people, I think we're just talking for no reason about this personality stuff, but it really makes a huge difference. It can make such a huge difference. We were talking, I was talking to Katie about this not too long ago, but, and it's something I found unique about working at Spot On Solutions and an organization that puts a high emphasis on that. But, we had an employee last year that was in a role that they didn't appreciate and enjoy. And, other companies that I've worked for in the past, they get, you're canned, you're gone. Like you don't like the role that we put you in. Well, see you later. Katie took the time of like, okay, let's find something that you would like better. Let's find something that you feel like your skill set would work better at. And I've never been a part of some place that truly believed that. And it was eye-opening to me. And it's, similar to the story that you kind of shared, that like, we're going to find a role that works for you. And we're going to talk through it because we know your personality, our personality. Let's figure out what's going to work best for you in the long term. We're not going to kick you to the curb because you don't do well at this X job. We're going to give you Y, the Y job. And then, we'll work down the road and see what works better for you.
But right there, that's a perfect example of how culture trumps efficiency in production.
Yep.
Because your production and your efficiency will get better just by behaving that way.
Yep.
100%.
All of this training and all of this disc stuff that you were doing eventually led you to a point that you felt like you guys were ready to get out of the industry. While there might be specific insider tips about the restoration industry in particular, was there a point that you felt like, okay, we're ready to sell, we're ready to be done? Was it a revenue threshold? Was there a size of your company that you felt? What was that point that you and Larry were like, all right, we're ready to be done?
No, it was really driven by me because
Okay.
I had been commuting from Utah to Los Angeles every week for 11 years. And my kids were getting older. You see, I missed basically all of my children's growing up years, younger years, where Larry had them right in town. And, my daughters were becoming teenagers and I was just increasingly feeling like I needed to be home, like a lot. So I was doing like 10 days in Utah and 7 days in California, like rotating that for like the last 18 months of our business. And I could tell, like, I wasn't so day to day that I had to be in everything, that we had people in place to do all this stuff, but I was losing my focus on this, I was really ready to go into what I wanted to do next. And I think Larry, from his perspective, he was probably just a little burned out because especially when you have a lot of plumbers in your stable, they're calling you 24/7 when you're the business development person, who Larry was.
Yeah.
So, and look, we had a friend who owned a restoration business that was doing rebuild and a lot bigger than ours at that point. And they were in the kind of adjacent area to us. So it made perfect sense for them to gobble us up and then take that whole big area. So look, it all just worked. Like,
just worked well. Yeah.
There was no master plan like that. Yeah. I can't speak for Larry, but I know I was ready. I was just ready to do this, what I'm doing now. Like, I was there mentally. I'd already had it in my head. I was already like, we haven't gotten into what I do yet, but I was already shooting videos to practice. And, I was ready.
Yeah. And I don't think people ever know. I don't think there's ever like a deciding moment. You'll know when you know, I guess that sounds bad, but from my experience, that seems like the most predominant answer. I've asked this question to multiple of my clients that I know have sold businesses and stuff like that. And the answer is never like, well, we hit X amount of dollars, or we grew this company to 50 employees and we're like, I'm going to sell it. It was like, well, there was these circumstances and we eventually got to a point where just when you know, and you got to do what's best for you and your family, or just for you as an individual, you got to do what's best to, help you be the best that you can be. So, well, sounds like a good transition point. Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now with Morning Tech Meeting, Super Tech University. You're kind of going through a rebrand right now, but talk a little bit about that transition period and why you wanted to do what you're doing now.
So when I started going to Utah, one of the things that we did to get everybody trained up on their soft skills and just to build our culture was we started having a daily meeting every single day for 10 to 15 minutes. All team, I mean, unless they were working the night shift, everybody, all hands on deck, where we would go and I would do a lesson every day for like 5 or 6 minutes. We'd spend 5 or 6 more minutes talking about it. And, look, we were investing in them and they appreciated it. Right. And it changed our business forever. And so what was happening was now all of a sudden I'm in Utah 10 days in a row I'm in Utah 10 out of every 17 days. So what we did was, this was like really early Zoom. Like Zoom had just come out. This is way before.
It's like a household word now, but yeah.
It was like 4 years before the pandemic.
Yeah.
One of the girls in the office found it and she's like, hey, Eric, you could do meetings from your office at home. And then with the camera system, we can see you and you could see us and you could continue to do the meetings and you don't have to be here. And I was like, that's great. I mean, that's fantastic. So I never missed a beat. I was doing the meetings every morning via video because we didn't want that to stop. That was like our secret sauce. And so after we were doing that, I was just driving in my truck one day and I'm like, any company that goes and rings a doorbell, plumber, HVAC, electrical, carpet cleaner, whatever, they could all benefit from the same thing. We all, I have all kinds of friends that own plumbing companies and HVAC companies. I'm like, what if I recorded some of these videos and had other guys in other realms try it out? Like, is there a business here? And so I did that. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing like, hey, my guys are way more into it. Hey, my guys are asking about this lesson or that lesson or whatever. So, we had already sold and Larry, stayed at the restoration company that bought us for 3 years as part of the buyout because he was the marketing guy. Right. But I was free to roam. and I said, look, man, let's start this business. I'll do everything for the first 3 years for the most part, because you have a job. And let's see if there's something here. Like we had no idea because look, man, we're like one of one. There's nobody else doing this. Right. So we started what we called morning tech meeting because that's what we always called it, our morning tech meeting. It didn't mean only techs were there. I mean, all the office staff was there. The business development people were there. Everybody was there. So I started recording these 5 to 6 minute videos based on the exact same ones I did at Shamrock. I tweaked it a little bit because we used to talk about our mission statement one day a week, right? So I tweaked that. But so now they get Monday's personal development, Tuesday's job site behavior, Wednesday's DISC because we're DISC certified trainers, Thursday sales training because that's always a big hiccup for a lot of people who are technicians. They're afraid to sell. And then Friday, we recap the week on the video, and then they take a 5-question quiz to make sure that they're paying attention, right? So we started doing that, and we started selling that to all service businesses. We have landscapers, pest controls. We even have some auto body shops because, we knew an auto body guy, and he's like, okay, you guys are talking about going to the house, but the customer's coming to us. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Electricians, contractors, a lot of restoration people, obviously. And look, one of the ways we learned that a membership site's value is judged as churn rate. How many people get signed up and then how many people leave and how quickly. And, Larry and I are looking at these churn rates for membership sites and we're kind of going, oh man, like this is like a constant marketing thing, like almost nobody ever leaves us. I mean, yeah, we've had a couple businesses, close during COVID and, we've had guys that just, they weren't doing it. Like if they quit, it's usually because they're just not taking the time to do it. They usually will say, dude, your product's great. I'm just not doing it. I'm not following through. But in the 2.5 years we've been doing it, our churn rate's like so low. And That's awesome. Because people are getting value, and look, I had to sit, I was lucky. I had managers doing the job that I used to do. So then I could sit in my office and plan out this week's lesson plans and research them and figure out what I'm going to say and all that. So, as we're selling it to these service companies, it's just something the owner doesn't have to do. You can get the benefit without having to do the work.
100%. Well, and I've gone back and listened to some of your content, and one of the things that you and Larry were having a conversation, there's all sorts of gurus out there for entrepreneurs and business owners. There's seemingly millions of them. There's probably not, but thousands of Tony Robbins type guys, and those guys are great. And then I love reading about them and listening to them and getting motivated. But there's not a lot of like you said, you're one of one. There's not a lot of gurus or whisperers, as we mentioned before, about that'll talk to these techs, that'll talk to your boots on the ground guys that are actually the ones interacting with your customers. And it seemed like you found a niche that needed to be filled, and took it to the next level. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I just wanted to reiterate, look, there's all kinds of business coaches. Let's use restoration, for example.
Yep.
They're my friends. Chuck Violin's a good friend, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go compete with Chuck. Like, he's got, 35 years experience, building up these big businesses, being their coach. Like, what do I have to offer that Chuck doesn't already do? And there's many other people too that do this. They're really good at what they do. That's not my thing. My thing was always technicians. I'm a technician at heart. Hey, and I was on a truck for years.
Yep.
And one of the reasons I think, and what I hear, is the reason that the technicians, engage with the videos is because they could tell that I did it. And I didn't do it for like 6 months and I'm off the truck. And it's, I've been there. I've had that frustration. I've made all the mistakes they're talking about. And if you watched enough videos, a lot of times, you'll see me put up my hand and go, guys, here's something that I'm terrible at, and I'm working on it.
Yep.
Like, let's all talk about, because you guys are probably not that much different than me, right? We need to work on these things. And, how I got the Tech Whisperer name was Larry used to go up to our whiteboard and try to explain a job that he had bid, right? Like, he'd be like trying to explain to the technicians what he needed them to do that day. And they'd all sit there and like be looking past Larry over at me sitting on a picnic table in the warehouse or something. And they'd all give me the look of I have no idea what he's talking about. Like, what are we doing here? So I had been listening. So I'd walk over and go, all right, you go here and do these things. You back him up and help him. You go over here and do that, blah, 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 blah. And then they'd all look and go, cool. And Larry would be livid. He'd be like, why do you understand it when Eric says it and you don't understand it? Why? And one of our guys just looked at Larry and went, because Eric's like a tech whisperer. He just gets us. He speaks our language, and I don't know in what way, but I think there is some truth to that.
That's cool. That's really cool. It's great that you've coined that term, because I think it's true. I think you've developed something that will help guys take not only their businesses to the next level, but take themselves. I'm big on trying to be a better person today than I was yesterday, and trying to be better tomorrow than I am today. And I think this is a great way, going back to some of those lessons that you focused on. We want you to be good at your job, but we ultimately want you to be a good person. And that can start with things as simple as getting a good night's rest, and eating breakfast in the morning before you come to work, and then come to work excited and ready to go. Like, simple lessons like that can really, help you be a better person.
Look, if you're not good at home, you're not going to be good at work.
Yeah. 100%.
One of the things that we were doing was we kind of developed this system of doing, we called it a quick review. It's like a tailgate review where you could do it in 5 to 7 minutes. Right. But we were reviewing everybody monthly, because if you review everybody every 30 days, they can't get very far off course.
Yep.
Right. And one of the things that we would hear over and over that they would say is like, hey, I could go make more money somewhere else, but nobody's going to invest in me like this. And in a day and age now, especially where finding and holding on to talent, especially on the technician level, is so big, it still blows me away how many companies don't value and invest in them enough.
100%. Well, yeah, I mean, that's great information, Eric. And I really, really appreciate you coming on and talking about some of these things. And I want to close up. I sent you over my closing questions that I ask everybody. But I want to kind of wrap up with those 3 questions. They started as, I called them rapid fire questions, but they're not really rapid fire. So don't feel like you got to answer in 30 seconds, but I want to close with asking 3 things. Favorite book or podcast that you're listening to right now? What's one thing, or not necessarily one thing, but what do you do to recharge or relax at the end of a long day? And then lastly, if you could rewind to the beginning of all this, to the beginning of Shamrock and your restoration company with you and Larry, what's one thing that you would tell yourself? So first, favorite book or podcast right now that you're listening or reading to?
It's a book that I've read fairly recently, so we'll go with that.
Okay, great.
The book is called Quiet, and it's written by Susan Cain, Cain, and there's also an associated TED Talk with the book. But it's about the power of introverts, because Larry's a massive extrovert, and I mean, yes, I can get on this podcast and talk, but I'm an introvert at heart. I generally will be found, if I'm not on stage speaking in front of a camera, giving a lesson, or on a podcast, you'll see me by myself, not talking much, and it's not that I don't like people. I think people are great. And this is a big part of the book, is that people drain my energy. So therefore I have to do it in small doses so that I can take care of myself. Whereas Larry, people give him energy because he's an extrovert. So Larry felt that anybody that was introverted was flawed. And we've done a podcast on this book, right? And that book was a game changer for Larry, because he viewed anybody who wasn't as extroverted as him as somehow, had social problems, And I mean, he even said, he's like, look, it ruined that, not understanding this ruined a marriage. Has been hard with my introverted child, and for me, it was more of, oh, I'm not the only one that needs to go, like when I go speak at a conference, I can't go right to the trade show. I can be up and give everything I have for an hour on that stage, and I got to go find a corner for another hour to recharge, and then I'm good again. Yep. Whereas like Larry, if he spoke, he'd be like, crowd surfing,
he's amped up.
Yeah. So that book, and, look, if you're not big on reading, just watch the TED Talk. It's 17 minutes long. It's really good. It helped me understand myself better. And also, I think it helped Larry and my relationship a lot more.
Well, that leads right into the second question. You kind of mentioned it there for a sec when you're talking about speaking, but yeah, how does Eric at the end of a long day of speaking or whatever it might be recharge or relax? You kind of mentioned it, but how do you do it?
You will find me one of 2 places.
Okay.
You will find me on a bicycle riding, as long as the weather's good.
Love it.
And if it's winter, you will find me on a pair of skis.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, you like you mentioned before, you live in Utah, so you picked a good place to do some skiing in the winter. That's probably the best place in the world to do it.
That was by design.
That wasn't by accident. I got you. Okay.
No.
Well, very cool. Well, okay, then to finish it all up, if you could rewind back to your first days in the cleaning and restoration industry and could go back and tell young Eric one thing, what would it be? Besides maybe like invest in Apple stock or something, what would it be?
It took me too long to understand that having systems in place was crucial to have a happy place of business. We had a lot of chaos early on. Would I have, if maybe buying the right franchise that had the right systems all done, maybe I would have chosen that just for the systems. Or if I had really understood it, written all the systems out to the best of my ability, and then started hiring the people so that they come in with structure. Because one of the hardest things I had to do, and we didn't get into this at all, but while I was building the culture, I spent 2.5 years every single day building systems and then trying to plug them in now that we have 25, 30 people, and they've been able to like free range it for a long time.
Right.
And all of a sudden the accountability is coming down the pike, and that wasn't fun because they were used to it being fast and loose. So lost a lot of money and had a lot of headache by not having systems. So I would never start a business again without all the systems being done first.
Build a system in place there. Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer, Eric, but I really, really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I think you've offered some great insights into not only the cleaning and restoration industry, but just how to run a business and how to be effective at training your employees and helping them be the best they can be. We've mentioned a few of the things that, Morning Tech Meeting, Super Tech University. Where else can people find you? You also have a podcast. Our audience is small right now, so it really should be you plugging me, but plug the podcast, plug Super Tech University.
Sure. Yeah. So, full disclosure, Spot On Solutions did our full rebrand. So thank you.
We've had a hand in that. Yep.
Yeah. Melanie and Melissa and Katie and Derek have been super helpful. So yeah, we have right at this moment, Hayden, we have 2 websites, two domain names. So it's morningtechmeeting.com. Ideally, you'd go to supertechu.com, which Larry and I like because it's just way quicker to type.
There you go. SuperTechU.
Supertechu.com. And then anybody that goes on there, there's buttons to click and you can get a free week of lessons to try it out. And you can obviously get a hold of Larry and I, and, we can help out in any way possible if you need more info. And then we also have a podcast. It's called Blue Collar Nation Podcast. You can find it on iTunes or wherever podcasts are found. And, that podcast has become a labor of love for both Larry and I. Anybody familiar with the NPR show Car Talk? It has a vibe of that, because Larry and I are both from the Northeast, and we do have a brotherly styled relationship. So I think it's a little bit like that. But what we do is we try to mix having a good time and being entertaining with good information. Once it comes time to really get down to brass tacks and talk about work, we can do that. But usually the show starts with about, 10, 15 minutes of Larry and I tooling on each other. And,
that's a good relationship.
You got to reel them in first,
Right. 100%.
And look, we have amazing people on, we have Mike McAllowitz, who wrote Profit First. Chuck Violin's been on, Tommy Mello, A1 Garage Door. It's a $92 million a year service business. I mean, we're getting, that's been the cool part. Like, we're starting to get people reaching out to us to be on the show that 2 years ago, when I was writing them emails and begging them to come on, nobody was coming on.
They had no idea. Yeah.
No. So it's been a real labor of love, like I said. And it's just so much. I've learned so much just by having to research and then get to talk to these people. Like, you could have asked me the same question, like, what would I have done again to start before I started Shamrock? Another one would be, give me a year of podcasting with these types of guests, because, it's almost like a master class in running a service business.
Yep.
So those are the 2 places to find us.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I hope to have you on again. You have a standing invite at any time to come on and
thank you. We got to get Larry on too.
I want to have Larry on. We got to get a time when we
I think Katie wanted to start with just me, Hayden, because it's show 6 for you. And if you have both of us, that might take you off your game. Matt,
right. Well, so I had to get broken into it a little bit with you, and then I'll be able to handle both you and
because if the both of us are on, we might start just taking over, and you're like, "What am I doing here?" And, we're being rude. And
I'll just eventually shut my mic off and just kind of sit there and listen in, and
Then at the end you get like, "Oh, hey, thanks a lot for coming.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, I guess." Well, I appreciate it, Eric, and we hope you have on again. So
okay, thank you, Hayden.
This has been Success Elevated, making you a little bit better one show at a time. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe on any major podcast platform or check out our website at successonpoint.com.